Story Corner, presented by Jennifer. Spirit Animals, Book 1, Wildborn, Chapter 7, Teamwork. On her way to the training room, almost every single person Meilin passed stared at her. Some covertly, some unassumingly gawking. Conversation stopped in mid-sentence when she came into view, and once she passed, whispers followed her. The few who didn't stare sent her careful glances or self-conscious waves and nods, which were almost more telling. Rollan was right. The green cloaks had heavy expectations of her. Meilin entered the wide and airy room and found Conor waiting with his wolf. The training area looked almost too large, much bigger than the practice space she had used with the masters back home. She guessed the vaulted ceiling was meant for the green cloaks with winged beasts. "Glad to see you," Conor said, rubbing his arm self-consciously. "I was starting to worry I'd come to the wrong place." I got a message with my breakfast, Meilin said. "They asked me to report here with Jin as soon as I finished." Conor nodded. "Me too. I could hardly eat after the notes. I can't, I don't know my letters very well, so I had to get help reading it." Conor read. Did it sound like a test to you?" "Some kind of assignment." Conor glanced at Briggan, then back at Meilin. "I guess Jin is on your hand." "She seems to prefer it much at the time." Conor nodded, then seemed very aware that he had run out of things to say. Crouching, he stroked Briggan. Meilin watched him avoid her gaze. He was a simple boy, base-born, uneducated, yet in one important way he was her peer. He had summoned one of the 4 fallen. Why him? Could it be random chance? If so, why her? Would random chance have selected someone as prepared for leadership as herself? Rollan entered the room, the falcon on his shoulder. Am I late? Conor looked up, relief stamped on his face. Glad you're here. Some quiet understanding passed between them. What had she missed? Had they discussed her in private? With Zong under attack, she didn't want to spend any time worrying about such trivial things. But she couldn't help it, and that annoyed her. Nobody else has shown up yet? Rollan asked. Not yet, Conor said. Rollan scanned the weapons held in the rack against the walls. Swords, scimitars, knives, spears, polearms, axes, staves, and clubs. Are we going to fight to the death? Nothing that exciting, Tarkin said, entering the room with 2 other men and a woman. All 3 wore green cloaks and were new to Meilin. They paid rapid attention to Exus and Brigand. We evaluate all new recruits to gauge their abilities. Rollan looked at the green cloaks. Who are your friends? Observers, Tarkin answered calmly. They'll assist you as needed. Pay them little mind. I just want to put each of you through a few exercises. Finally, Rollan grumbled. Somebody to stare at us. The 2 men crossed to Conor and Rollan. The woman approached Meilin. She was thick, but not flabby, and had a no-nonsense look about her. Meilin, could you produce Jin? Tarkin asked. Meilin focused her attention on the simple tattoo on the back of her hand. When her interest was elsewhere, she hardly noticed the mark. But now she could perceive a warmth beneath the image, a vague presence. She mentally called to Jin, imagining a door opening, and then, with a flash, the tattoo vanished and Jin appeared. Well done, Tarkin complimented. Some who have newly learned to use the passive state struggle to release their animal. You did that swiftly, which is important. While passive, your spirit animal cannot aid you. Meilin gave a nod and a modest smile. Although accustomed to praise, she was not entirely immune to its effect. She noticed the boys, particularly Rollan, watching her enviously. Keeping her eyes on Tarkin, she pretended not to care. Please allow your escorts to blindfold you, Tarkin instructed. We are going to test your awareness of your spirit animals without the aid of sight. Meilin held still as the woman placed a blindfold over her eyes. Do you guys fight a lot with your eyes closed? Rollan asked. Meilin had been thinking the same thing, but she never would have said it. This will simulate a situation where your spirit animal is out of view, Tarkin explained patiently, as if the question had not been meant to rattle him. Relax and follow instructions. A hand took Meilin by the elbow and led her several paces. With great care, she retained a sense of where she stood in the room. She waited for perhaps a minute. The animals have all changed position, Tarkin announced. Now, I now challenge each of you to point out the location of your animal. I respectfully ask the animals to keep silent. Meilin strained her senses, but could neither hear nor smell anything. She thought about the vague presence she could feel beneath the tattoo when Jin was in her dormant state, and tried sensing a similar presence around her. Nothing. Good, Conor. Very close, Tarkin said. Meilin kept her face composed, but felt disappointed. Could Conor have a stronger connection to his spirit animal than she had to hers? He couldn't even use the passive state. Maybe he had made a lucky guess. I'm sorry, Rollan, you're way off, Tarkin said. But good job, Conor. Brigand is moving, and you're tracking him well. Meilin silently ordered Jin to make herself known. From the start, Jin had obeyed her requests, but Meilin still felt nothing. Meilin, Tarkin said, if you're unsure, rely on your instincts. She didn't want to point randomly, but maybe Tarkin was giving her a hint. Maybe her awareness of her creature was something felt only at an instinctive level. That might explain why Conor was good at it. She doubted his problem would be too much thought. Following a whim, Meilin extended a finger to the right. Not even close, Meilin, Taryn said, with a touch of humor in his tone. Meilin pointed to the left. Better, but still far off, Tarkin reported. Meilin had to work to keep her expression neutral. What sort of absurd contest was this? She silently demanded for Jin to reveal herself. Once again, she sensed nothing. Not bad, Rollan, Taryn said. Not good, but you're doing well for it to only be chance. Conor, you're a natural at this. Meilin tried not to feel flustered. She had never attempted to sense Jin like this. Had the boys practiced? Probably. Care to try one more time, Meilin? Taryn asked. She pulled off her blindfold. I feel nothing. She looked to where Jin strolled near one of the walls of the training area, led by an escort. It's not unusual, Taryn told her. Meilin watched Conor's finger follow Brigand, staying on the animal even when the wolf reversed direction. X's flew around overhead. Rollan seemed to be able to identify which half of the room the bird was in, but not much else. How can I improve? Meilin asked. You can already call Jin to her passive state, Taryn acknowledged, so earning the trust of your beast does not seem to be the problem. I imagine it will just take time to strengthen your connection. Part of that includes your receptiveness to her. Meilin nodded. Jin always obeyed her orders, so what had gone wrong? Perhaps Taryn was right. Perhaps the panda was trying. Meilin frowned. Maybe she was the one unable to receive the cues. Aside from Jin's obedience, they weren't very close. What would it take? Deep affection? Mutual understanding? It was hard to respect such a docile, slow animal. But Jin was her spirit animal. There would be no other. Meilin would have to make it work. You may remove your blindfolds, Taryn invited. Meilin glanced at the weapons on the wall. The wooden swords were obviously practice gear. Many of the arms looked real, though some of them could be blunted. With or without help from Jin, Meilin expected she could dominate either of the boys in just about any form of combat. Such a demonstration would be satisfying. But would it be wise? Her father always told her to keep her abilities private so she could surprise adversaries in time of need. Next we'll try a physical exercise, Taryn announced. All three of you will go to the far wall. He indicated to the wall he meant. You will run across the room and touch this other wall as high as you can. Then run back and strike the suspended bag with all your might. Ask your animals to help to enhance your effort in any way they can. Meilin surveyed the canvas bag hanging from a beam near the far wall. Suspended by a chain, the bulging sack was taller than her and looked heavy. Will we do it at the same time? Meilin asked. Yes, Taryn said. The first to reach the bag will strike it first, and so forth. We will evaluate your speed, the height of your leap, the force of which you hit the bag. Go ahead and take a moment with your animals. Meilin approached Jin. The panda sat on her hind legs and watched her serenely. Jin licked one of her paws. The relaxed attitude did little to boost Meilin's confidence. Can you help me with this? Meilin asked. Can you give me extra speed, extra energy? I never felt that from you. This might be a good time to start. The panda cocked her head as if mildly perplexed. Look, Meilin whispered harshly. Every minute we are stuck here in training is another minute that my father and his armies have to struggle without us. I know you have power. You're a great beast. So I need you to help me. Because every delay helps our enemy. Do you understand? We're not playing a game here. We are at war. Did Meilin sense a degree of understanding in that unblinking silver gaze? Or was it imagined? The boys were heading to the wall, so Meilin trotted to join them. Her body was in good condition. Even though it had been a few weeks since a formal training session with the masters, she had engaged in regular routines while traveling to maintain her reflexes and endurance. The boys were taller, but she wasn't slow. and she knew how to deliver vicious blows. Briggan paced along one of the side walls, watching the three with a predator's intensity. X's flew up to roost on the beam above the suspended bag. Jen sat where Meilin had left her, looking on silently. Rollan smirked at her. Did you have to run much in your palace? I didn't live in a palace, Meilin replied. It was true, although she realized her home would probably look like a palace to Rollan and Conor, assuming it still stood. I run fine, Conor volunteered. I haven't done it much lately. How about you, Rollan? Orphans have to run well, he replied. A slow orphan ends up in jail. Weren't you in jail? Meilin asked innocently. Are you ready? Tarkin called. One green cloak observer stood by them against the starting wall. Another was positioned by the wall where they would jump, and the third waited near the hanging sack. All three kids touched the wall behind them. Get ready, Tarkin said, and go! Meilin pushed off and ran as fast as she could. In her mind, she asked Jin for greater speed, feeling somewhat ridiculous. It was hard to imagine extra speed coming from the sluggish panda. With swift animals, Conor and Rollan had much more cause for faith. Meilin ran well, but as she approached the wall for the jump, Rollan was a few paces ahead, and Conor was about even with her. The dash felt like nothing beyond the regular sprint. Meilin considered the jump. If the boys tried to leap high, it might slow their turn. If she focused instead on turning around quickly, she might gain ground and perhaps make it first to the hanging bag. Then again, if the jump counted for a third of her score, a weak jump might guarantee last place even if she hit the bag hard. Ahead of her, Rollan slowed a little and jumped, slapping the wall as high as he could. It was a respectable jump, but nothing extraordinary. Meilin decided to go for it. As she leapt, Meilin felt a strange surge of energy and kicked off the wall to increase the height of her jump. Conor sprang beside her, and although he was taller, she slapped the wall higher. After landing, she turned and ran hard. Conor was behind her now. Rollan was a good 4 paces ahead and going strong. A piercing howl cut through the room. Briggan. Though Meilin tried to ignore the noise, goosebumps rose on her arm. Conor streaked past Meilin and past Rollan as well. He reached the bag several steps ahead of Rollan, jumped and slammed into it with his shoulder. He rebounded roughly, spinning to the floor, and the bag only jostled a little. Meilin realized she needed to take care how she hit the bag. It was clearly heavy. She would treat it like she was striking the wall. Rollan threw a punch at the bag as he ran by. The bag absorbed the impact as if it were nothing. At least Conor had moved it. Begging for energy from Jen, Meilin left the ground and kicked with both legs. The massive bag swayed with the impact, but not a lot. She broke her fall with her hands and rose to her feet, panting. Are you all right, Conor? Tarkin asked. He rose gingerly, rubbing his shoulder. I'm okay. You might have warned us it was full of rocks, Rollan complained, massaging his wrist. Sand. Tarkin clarified. Thoughts? Not much beyond their natural talents, the female green cloak said. Except towards the end of Conor's run, one of the other green cloaks pointed out. How did that feel? Tarkin asked. When Briggan howled? Conor asked. I don't know. It was like I had the wind at my back. I felt more aggressive. I wasn't planning to ram the stack, but it felt right. He grimaced. Until I hit it. The green cloak near the jump wall spoke up. Meilin may have had a little boost when she jumped. Did you feel it, Meilin? Tarkin asked. Maybe a little, she replied. To be honest, I mostly felt on my own. If the panda helped, she would have gone slower, Rollan junked. You certainly punched like a bird, Meilin shouted back. It was hard as a feather. Whoa, Rollan said, raising both hands. Better not pick on the panda. No squabbling, Tarkin ordered. Your relationships with your animals are individual in nature. This isn't a contest. I mainly wanted to make each of you more aware of your spirit animals and how you might learn to help one another. Meilin fought a stab of anger. The training exercise had only empathized the worthlessness of her relationship with Jin. If this was all the panda had to offer, she had made a huge mistake leaving Zong. How could she have abandoned her father and her home for this? Are we done? Conor asked. Taran exchanged nods with the other green cloaks. We've seen enough for now. What does it look like when you hit the back? Rollan challenged. Taran glanced at the other green cloaks, then at the kids. You'd like a demonstration. Meilin sighed softly. The last thing she wanted after her lackluster showing was to watch an expert in action, but the boys encouraged him. With a flash, a sleek otter appeared. Rollan choked back a laugh. Your spirit animal is an otter. Lumen is more a clown than a beast, Taran explained. The otter rolled into a series of acrobats, its long body twisting and twirling like the tail of a kite. Conor clapped. All right, Taran told his beast indulgently. We all know you're the biggest show-off here. Do you mind lending me some help for a moment? The otter jolted upright to attention and then watched as Taran walked to the wall to where the others had started their race. Meilin gasped when he started running. Nobody could accelerate that quickly. When he reached the wall, he kicked against it 3 times, gaining altitude with each step, before slapping a spot more than twice as high as anyone else had reached. As he fell, Taran pushed off from the wall, did a backflip, and landed running. When he reached the hanging bag, his punch made it leap and quake. Then he turned away from the swinging bag. Amazing, Conor said. Rollan clapped as well, and gave a whistle. Meilin decided she had better offer some applause, or she would look like a poor sport. The display really had been quite impressive. She would never have guessed that the tall warrior could move with such speed and agility. Taran extended a hand to his otter. Lumo deserves the accolades. Without him, I could not have done any of that. We're a team, just as you are with your animals. Explore that connection, and you will be rewarded. Impressive, Meilin concluded, but I feel like we're getting distracted. Zon is under attack. People are dying. Who knows how many cities have fallen by now? I've come a long way in good faith, but I'm starting to wonder how my presence in Amaya is helping the war in Zong. When will we learn what you green cloaks want from us? I didn't cross Erdas to run races and kick sacks of sand. Soon, Taran promised. Olivan is finalizing his plans. You 3 have no idea how vital you are. We have to use you correctly, and you must try your best to be ready. Taran and the other green cloaks departed. Meilin avoided further conversation with Conor and Rollan by heading directly to Jin, who had rolled over onto her back, legs splayed out ridiculously. Let's go back to our room, she told the panda. Jin looked up expectantly. Meilin raised her hand. You want a lift? Guess what? As a reward for all your help, you get to walk today. Meilin started towards her room, not caring whether the panda followed or not.